So I'm going to give Fazbear Friends a final score of 9 out of 10. There was a lot to enjoy in this series. This sentence did not age well at all. Hello everybody, this is NQ Productions here, and welcome to another review video. Now, today's video is something I've wanted to make for a long time. My final review of Fazbear Friends. For those of you that don't know what Fazbear Friends is, it's a series of YouTube videos created by the folks that run Zamination and Enchanted Mob Studios. The first episode of the series first premiered on February 15th, 2021, and since then, 3 more episodes and a whole whack of shorts were released afterwards. Now, I've already talked about Fazbear Friends before on this channel. Not just once, but twice. My first video on the series was back in March of 2021, when there was only 2 episodes, and at the time, I loved Fazbear Friends. I praised the series for its animation, its enjoyable characters, and the large supply of jokes. I did have a few small critiques with the series in its early days, such as the kid-friendly tone and the simplistic plots in each episode, but for the most part, I had a good time with Fazbear Friends when I did my first video. Now, the second review of Fazbear Friends was made 4 months later in July of 2021, and my opinions on the show were basically the same as they were last time. Even though there were more episodes and shorts, I thought the quality of the series stayed the same. I still liked the animation, the characters, and the jokes, but each episode still had predictable plots, the kid-friendly tone was starting to become a little annoying, and the way that Zamination and Enchanted Mob were uploading the new Fazbear Friends videos was totally not cool. But even with those flaws, I still liked the series. Hopefully things will get better from here, and I hope the series doesn't turn into an absolute train wreck. Oh my god. Fazbear Friends, what the hell happened to you? Somehow, Zamination and Enchanted Mob have ruined Fazbear Friends. Nowadays, there's no more episodes. All it is just the shorts, and most of the shorts, and in fact the whole series, is now really terrible, like absolutely terrible. Most of the jokes are pretty bad, the characters are all super annoying, the animation got a noticeable downgrade, every short has like no plot to speak of, and Zam and Emob are still uploading their videos with terrible thumbnails and titles in order to try and bait as many little kids as possible. And there's even more garbage that I haven't talked about before, but we'll get back to that later. I'm not ready to talk about that stuff yet. Anyways, now that we've talked about my history with Fazbear Friends, what we're going to do in this final review video is that we'll take a look at every aspect of this series, and I'll talk about how each aspect has gotten much worse since the early days of this series. That way, we'll hopefully come to the conclusion that Fazbear Friends is an absolute train wreck. Let's begin, shall we? I should probably start with talking about the part of the series that has had the smallest downgrade, the animation. When the series first started, the visuals were nothing groundbreaking, but I still really liked the way the series looked. I liked the character designs, I loved how expressive the faces were, the lighting and rendering was solid, and I liked how the series tried to mimic old school cartoons with things like the lack of motion blur, the squash and stretch, and all of the smear frames. It's really neat stuff. The only thing that bugged me back in February of 2021 was that the animatronics had no shoulders, which was always a weird detail to me. Anyways, how does the animation look nowadays? Well, it still looks good, and the character designs are still the same as they were before, but the lighting and rendering is a lot blander than it was before. Sometimes during some shots, it looks like there's no lighting at all, and it's really jarring. There's also less frames of movement, and because of the way the show is animated, it's really easy to notice how many less frames there are when characters move. Also, in some shorts, there's a terrible looking smoke effect. Just look at how low res the model of the smoke is. That is just DISGUSTING! Now, I am aware that the Fazbear Friends shorts take a week to make, and maybe the animation looks this way because the team behind the series is rushing out the animation as fast as possible. And if that's the case, then yikes, I would not want to work at Enchanted Mob Studios. Oh, and in case you're wondering, yes, I am aware that Zamination and Enchanted Mob are working on both Fazbear Friends and Poppy Playtime at the same time, but I still think the visuals of this series could overall look a lot better. Okay, so the animation was the least bad stuff in current Fazbear Friends videos, but now let's talk about the real bad stuff. This is gonna take a while. When I watched the first episode of Fazbear Friends, there were a lot of jokes that I laughed and or chuckled at, but nowadays, most of the gags are not funny. The biggest issue is that whenever characters do an action, like for example when Bendy calls Foxy Boris, the first time it was a tad humorous, but when he has to do that same joke again and again and again and again and again and again and again. See? Me saying again and again is annoying, right? Well, this is exactly what most of the jokes are like in Fazbear Friends nowadays, and it does not work at all. The humor is repetitive, formulaic, boring, annoying, and just not funny. There's also a bunch of pop culture references, and it's one of those situations where if you don't get the reference, it won't be funny. It almost reminds me of Disaster Movie, which is not a good thing, since Disaster Movie is one of my least favorite films of all time. I've never laughed out loud once at any of the new shorts or episodes, and I do have a sense of humor. I love watching funny videos and animations. Asked If Movie is one of my favorite YouTube series of all time because of its comedy. But this just doesn't make me laugh. But I will admit there were a few jokes in Fazbear Friends that gave me a chuckle. I said earlier that most of the jokes were bad, and most doesn't equal all. There were a couple of jokes that I chuckled at in the newer shorts. I'll show you guys 2 examples of jokes that made me chuckle.
You thought nothing! There are 2 things that I hate in this world, and that's crocodiles and stupid updated references!
But even though Fazbear Friends does have those rare moments with the decent jokes, that is not enough to save the humor. I wasn't dying of laughter from anything that Fazbear Friends threw at my face, and the vast majority of the jokes are just terrible. Speaking of terrible things, how about we talk about dem characters? I liked the characters in the first few episodes of Fazbear Friends. They weren't anything special, but I liked being around them. But in the new episodes, or should I say shorts, of Fazbear Friends, considering they never upload new episodes anymore, the characters have now become so unlikable that I cannot stand being around them. I just want to see them get thrown into a dumpster and then get crushed by a garbage truck. Every single character is a pain to sit through. Nearly every character is now just a complete moron. I feel like most of the characters have an IQ of like 15 because they're so dumb nowadays. Not only are they dumb, but some of them are generic, some of them are just there for a joke and that's it, and some characters are so annoying. The Friday Night Funkin' Boyfriend's only personality trait is that he wants to challenge someone to a rap battle and only says rap references. I hate it. The Among Us crewmate just says Among Us over and over again and it's never funny. And the worst part is the 4 main animatronics. The personalities of these guys have been completely thrown out the window. Remember how Bonnie acted in the first episode where he was a likable comic relief? Well, clearly Zam and Emom forgot who Bonnie was because look at what he does in one of the shorts.
I couldn't help but notice that you seem to lack basic intelligence.
What the f? Bonnie would never do anything like this in a real Five Nights at Freddy's show. What the actual f? The old characters are nothing like how they were at the start of this series, and all the new characters are either characters I couldn't give 2 shits about, or just flat out annoying. One more thing I'll talk about related to the characters is the voice acting. For the most part, it's still pretty good, but there are some characters that I wish would just shut up because their voices get on my nerves. I'm looking right at you, Bendy. So yeah, the characters suck, and none of them are likable in the slightest. Now, you know how earlier I talked about Bonnie and how sometimes he goes for girls? Well, I guess this is the point in the video where I should talk about all the weird and cringy moments in Fazbear Friends that happen way too much. We're also going to be talking about NFTs. Oh boy. This is going to be rough. Why are there so many sexual moments in Fazbear Friends? The characters get involved in a lot of sexually related activities, and it's not just with Bonnie. Foxy falls in love with a female version of himself, not Mangle or Funtime Foxy, just a pink version of Foxy. Really shows the series' laziness. There's a weird short on the beach where the characters have no shirts. That was weird and cringy. There's a makeout scene, and those are just examples I can remember off the top of my head. There's way more than just this. And the worst part is that this series is supposed to be meant for kids! These Fazbear Friends animations have been meant for a young audience since day one, and back then the things that happened in the episodes would be fine for a kid to watch. But this? No. This is just awful. And this is the kind of content that should be put into PewDiePie's cringe compilation videos.
Manicure, for fuck's sake. It's disgusting. What is that? What am I looking at?
Kids shouldn't be watching this stuff. And speaking of kids, the way that Fazbear Friends gets uploaded to YouTube is just horrendous. The thumbnails and titles of each video are trying to clickbait you. Wow, Bonnie's new girlfriend. Toy Chica is in love with Huggy Wuggy. Wow, Circus Baby has a twin sister. I had no idea. Like, what the actual is this garbage? It's lies, I tell you, lies! Also, why are the videos 20 to 30 minutes long? The shorts are only 60 seconds long. Oh, I'll tell you why. It's because Zamination and Enchanted Mom are absolute dirtbags and fill every upload they do with older shorts in order to get as much undeserved watch time as possible. Okay, I am so sorry you guys had to hear me shout. Apologies for getting super angry, but can you blame me? Like, seriously, look at this stuff. This is the kind of stuff you'd see in the YouTube Kids app. It is really messed up. But you know what's interesting about Fazbear Friends? It's actually breaking YouTube's own community guidelines. How? Oh, I'll tell you how. 1. Fazbear Friends breaks the spam rule because the upload strategy is just the same shorts over and over again on not just one, but 2 YouTube channels, which is like the dictionary definition of spam. 2. Fazbear Friends breaks the misleading content rules because the thumbnail and title of their new videos is usually never related to what actually happens in the video. 3. YouTube's rules about sexual content is somewhat broken because of the over-sexualization of characters like Circus Baby and Ballora in Fazbear Friends. Also, the thumbnails of Fazbear Friends show the characters in these weird, sexy, and suggestive poses, with these heart emotes all over the screen as well. And lastly, 4. Fazbear Friends is breaking the rule of scams. How? Well, in some of the uploads of Fazbear Friends, Zamination and Enchanted Mom had sponsored segments about NFTs. No! More specifically, an NFT-based game called The Sandbox, which makes sense since they made their own NFTs for Poppy Playtime. But remember, NFTs are one giant scam, so by promoting this NFT game, Zam and Emob are technically violating YouTube's rules about scams and shady links by showing these NFTs to an audience of kids. Just saying this stuff about NFTs makes me shiver. And even though in Zamination and Enchanted Mom's Discord servers, they said they would stop doing NFTs, if they truly wanted to stop doing NFTs, they would cut out the parts of the Fazbear Friends videos that promote the NFTs. And they know they can do that, right? You can cut out sections of your own YouTube videos. I've done it before, for Pete's sake. However, at the time of making this video, nothing has happened and the NFTs are still there. But, to be fair, Examination and Enchanted Mob have never cared about their audience before, so it actually makes a lot of sense to see them not remove the NFT promotions. Remember guys, Zam and Emob only care about money and nothing else. Oh, and before we end things off today, I'm not gonna talk about the plots of each short in this review. I mean, why should I talk about the stories of each video when there's barely any story to speak of, right? See guys, this is what I'm talking about. This is why Fazbear Friends is a bad series. It's a series of YouTube videos that isn't all that special, suffers from downgraded animation, has a large supply of unfunny jokes, its characters are unlikable and annoying, there's a lot of weird sexual and cringy moments, the thumbnails, titles, and upload strategies are just abysmal, and seeing this series promote something as awful as NFTs is like adding salt to an open wound. Now, I'll admit that some of the newer shorts have gotten a bit better, but those new shorts are mediocre at best. When I was watching them for the sake of this video, I was just so bored watching them. And it doesn't change the fact that the series as a whole is just bad. There may be a small amount of decent stuff, but there's way too many negatives to the series to call it any good. I'm giving Fazbear Friends my final score of 3 out of 10. The only reason I'm not giving this series a 1 out of 10 is because the animation isn't terrible, the voice acting is decent, there's a minuscule amount of funny jokes, and it's not the worst thing out there, but man, this show sucks. Make sure to stay far away from this series. Man, it's kind of nuts how when I first looked at Fazbear Friends, I gave it a 9 out of 10, and now it's all the way down to a 3 out of 10. It's kind of crazy how much my opinions on this series changed in the span of just 1 year. But I guess that's what happens when the creators of a series only care about the money and nothing else. In the meantime, you guys can walk away with this important quote. YouTube videos can be disastrous in the wrong hands, but in the right hands, it can be a form of art. Okay, thanks for watching. This video took forever to make. I'm gonna go lie down now. Okay, bye!